Don Bluth is most well known for his feature films, from The Secret of Nim to his collaborations with Steven Spielberg to his time running Fox Animation. However, he has produced a number of other projects over the years, both before and during his period as a director of animated features. If anything, these other productions show a bit more of his experimental side than the likes of An American Tail and Anastasia did. While Don Bluth famously defected from Disney in the late 70s due to his dissatisfaction of how the studio was run, he was given quite a number of responsibilities there. Don Bluth's first big assignment was serving as the animation director for the hybrid film Pete's Dragon. But around the production of that film, he began directing the animated short The Small One. This is a sweet short about the relationship between a boy and his donkey. While the setting of the short gives somewhat of an indication of where the story will eventually head, the religious aspect does not really show up until the ending. However, The Small One still presents a compelling tale as we see the boy attempt to sell his beloved donkey to somebody who will treat him with the needed care. The songs, two of which were written by Bluth, complement the short nicely, with the merchant song being particularly amusing. There is just the right amount of heart to make us invested in the boy's predicament, and the animators give the donkey the needed expressions to make us endeared to him. The Small One does not hide the religious aspect, a rarity for a Disney animated film, as they often tend to shy away from religion. It's little surprise Disney has since packaged The Small One with other Christmas shorts in DVD compilations. While he was still working at Disney, Don Bluth was secretly making an independent short titled Banjo the Woodpile Cat. He'd initially pitched the short to Disney head Ron Miller, who rejected it. At one point, Bluth considered expanding it into a feature film, but he soon realized a half-hour special was the best method of telling the story. Banjo hinges on the simple concept of a cat who decides to explore the big city, but eventually grows homesick. Banjo is mischievous in the start, but he's a likable little feline, and we do grow sympathetic towards him when he starts to wish to return home. The friendship he forms with an alley cat named Crazy Legs is a genuinely warm-hearted one, partly because of Crazy Legs' genuine want to help this kitten. The decision to hire Scatman Crothers was a particularly good one on the part of Bluth and his team. There are no villains in this short, making Banjo's desire to go back to his farm in Woodpile the central conflict. When Bluth tried expanding the idea into a feature film, they did add a villain, but he rightfully decided an antagonist was not the right fit for this particular story. Being his first independent production, this was the first time Bluth was allowed to bring his own visual sensibilities to a project. While certainly influenced by the Disney style, Don Bluth's design still managed to attain a distinct appearance. Bluth and his team of animators continued working tirelessly on Banjo, even as they were animating at Disney, but the short eventually saw completion a few months after his exodus, and it is certainly a well-done short that showcased an animation director with future potential. It wasn't long after leaving Disney and completing Banjo that Don Bluth got the chance to contribute to a major studio project. The filmmakers behind the movie musical Xanadu wanted to include an animated sequence and commissioned Bluth's studio to animate the number for Don't Walk Away. While this scene does not really fit with the rest of the film, I nonetheless think it provides one of the highlights in Xanadu and is my favorite piece of animation made by Bluth. This section mostly involves the two central characters being turned into fish, because Greek muse magic and the power of love, that sort of thing. It's an impressively animated scene, which is remarkable considering Bluth and his team only had a few months to animate the number in time for the film's August 1980 release date. Bluth's most ambitious projects came when he decided to step into the world of video games. Rick Dyer came up with the idea for an adventure game called Dragon's Lair, which he wanted to look like full animation, rather than the mere 8-bit sprites common in video games in the early 80s. Using Laserdisc technology, the result can certainly be called an achievement in video gaming. It's a credit to Bluth that even without playing the game oneself, one can easily see the amount of creativity and imagination as a knight makes his way through a castle to save a princess. All sorts of creatures and obstacles come at him, each different from the previous one. Don Bluth was then allowed to get even more out there with the sequel Dragon's Lair 2, and then got the chance to make a Flash Gordon-esque sci-fi adventure with Space Ace. It's telling with the popularity of his Kickstarter for a Dragon's Lair movie that people still hold a lot of affection towards these revolutionary arcade games. Don Bluth's feature directing career eventually took off in a major way with An American Tail, although his career found itself many ups and downs. His only notable success in the 90s was Anastasia, which led to the creation of a direct-to-video spin-off, Bartok the Magnificent. Centered around Rasputin's bat sidekick, this hour-long film actually shares quite a bit in common with Bluth's video games, as much of the movie is spent on Bartok attempting to collect a variety of items and beating strange creatures along the way. After seeing Bartok serve as the villain's sidekick in Anastasia, it's a little odd seeing him as the hero, trying to save a young boy who's been supposedly captured by a witch. The plot does end up making the film feel a little repetitive, and I was not particularly invested by Bartok's journey through the underworld. With that said, it's a harmless enough escapade. Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty, who wrote the songs for Anastasia, came back to compose new tunes for Bartok the Magnificent, and the soundtrack has its fair share of memorable songs. Despite being a direct-to-video title, the animation is still of good quality. One of the highlights comes courtesy of a talking, riddle-loving skull voiced by Tim Curry. This computer-generated effect blends pretty well to the environment. Speaking of which, the backgrounds have a striking and arresting quality to them. Overall, I would put this film on par with something like The Pebble and the Penguin in terms of Don Bluth's filmography, as middle-of-the-road but ultimately inoffensive fare. It's included on most DVD sets of Anastasia, so give it a watch if you're so inclined. Bluth's output has shown how open he was to working in different formats and lengths throughout his career, and however you feel about his work as a whole, that should certainly be commended. See you next time.